Okay, lots and lots of comments about what I use equipment-wise in the kitchen. So I guess what I'm going to show you now is 30 years of honing down all that equipment that we use in the kitchen, the stuff that I would travel with if I'm cooking abroad, the stuff that I have at home, the stuff I use at work. Here's a little tour of all the stuff I use. Okay, let's start here, please, Sam. Over here is, this is, for me, this most important part. Actually, a lot of people say to me, which two things are the most important thing in your kitchen? I would say it has to be my chopping board and my knives. Once I've got a great chopping board, great knives, sharp knives, the rest is easy. I use these chopping boards, which are Apex chopping boards. They have a softness to them. So if you sort of take a chopping knife, there is a softness, there's a grip from these chopping boards that is really nice. They don't absorb. We can use them for anything. We just label them, so we use them for different meats and fish and vegetables and stuff. It sounds like a really small thing, but actually they make the world of difference. They're a lot of money, but they last a lifetime, and they are a huge part of what makes, for me, the whole process of cookery really enjoyable. So they're really important. Knives and equipment, I'll come on to that. So these are the aprons that we use. These are Braggard full-length aprons that we use. They're from Braggard. They have a little pocket at the front, and I've always worn these aprons and love them very much. So these are our aprons. They wash well. They kind of wash up nicely. They're comfortable to wear. They're protective, and the colour suits the restaurant. So these are the Braggard aprons we wear all the time. Knives and kit. Let's talk about knives quickly. So I'm a big fan of this particular brand. I'm not paid, by the way, no affiliate link. I just love the brand, and I've always used Misono knives. Got a few of those Misono knives. I use a traditional steel because I'm old and that's what I do. I don't use a stone or anything like that, but I do just use a traditional steel, sharpen with that. I use these peelers. I've always used these peelers. They are, for me, the best peeler, the only peeler there is. Takes a very finite amount of whatever you're peeling off. They're very easy to get. They're nice and cheap to use, and we just use them all the time. They're the only ones that we use in the restaurant ever. So those are the peelers we use. We use mandolins, little Japanese mandolins. We use big ones, small ones. They're a really important part of what we use. Always have a really nice non-serrated carving knife. This is a Japanese knife that was made for me in Kyoto in Japan, so it's a bit special, but ultimately it's not serrated, so you get that really clean finish. I really believe that when you're carving meats and proteins and fish after they're cooked, it is that carve that really gives you that finish on the plate that is taking your food to another level. So I think that's a really important. That's razor sharp, and has done me proud for at least in the last 5-6 years. So really good knife. It's basically its sister knife. So it's a shorter version of that which I use. These are both carbon steel. You'll see how that's sort of slightly dirtier looking than a steel knife like this. And it's carbon steel, so they are dirtier. They do need more sharpening, but they are far sharper, and the blade resistance for me is much nicer. So I really like carbon steel knives. I also have this. I've always used a Mac filleting knife. That's a sort of flexible Mac filleting knife. I kind of dispose with them. I use them and use one a year or something, but they're super sharp. They're really fine. The blade's super thin. So if I want to slice peaches, slice tomatoes, whatever it is, I just know that I'm going to get a really fine slice. I like the weight of them. I like the way they sit in my hand, and I like how sharp they stay. So I'm a big fan of those, that particular brand of knives for a filleting knife. I also have a Mac chopping knife, a big chopping knife. That's more for weighty. So if I want to chop through some duck carcasses, or perhaps move through the cartilage in chicken thighs and things like that, I'll use a knife like that. There's got a bit of weight behind it. I'm not going to really cut so many herbs with it because it's not razor sharp, this one. This rather obscure looking guy here is it's a fish scaler. So you've got your fish, you're going from tail to head, and you run that up the fish, and it doesn't disrupt the skin at all. It takes all the scales off of a salmon, sea bass, whatever you need, a brill, whatever. Use that. It's a great tool. Really easy to get hold of, and a great tool to use if you need to scale fish. That's obviously an oyster knife. That's the one I prefer. Just a really big guard on the front because I've lost lots and lots of parts of my fingers going into the oyster. So actually a guard for me is good. You see all those scratches there? That's where the blade goes in and it hits the shell of the oyster and can really destroy your fingers. So this is a good oyster knife for me. I always like that one. And I just carry a little handy knife like this. I carry that around during the day, and I can just sort of turn stuff with it, do little bits with it, cut string with it, things like that. So a small little knife like that, really important. So that's kind of, I do have many more knives than that, but those are the knives ultimately that I use on a day-to-day basis. I can pretty much do every task that I want to do with that set of knives. I always have a card as well, pastry card. That's for scraping off the board. It's for pushing down in a piping bag to push up with, for cutting bits of bread or pastry that I'm doing as well. So pastry card, super important, never without one of those. I use a microfiber all the time to wipe down with. I just like the finish they give me, a nice damp microfiber, and we change them all the time and get them washed through the machine on 90 degrees so they get nice and clean. But a microfiber, really lovely for me. Okay, let's put those away and move into some more of the sort of technical equipment as well. Okay, so a few more technical bits and pieces that we use before we get into those. That's the pepper mill that I would always choose, introduced to me by the great Phil Howard. That's a Man Kitchen pepper mill, a pepper cannon. It just is another level. You can set the tone of that pepper that comes out really big. You can make it much smaller, like that, but it comes out at an alarming rate and really plows through that peppercorn. So that's a fantastic pepper mill, best I've ever used, and yeah, love that. Again, not paid by these people. I just have honed my choice of these things over the last 30 years, and these are the things that I think are best. So that's the pepper mill I use. Microplane, super important. You know, the days of box graters are now gone. A microplane is a great thing for truffles, for parmesan, for all sorts of things that we use, lemons and citrus and stuff like that. So really good microplane, nice and sharp, really important as well. Always use one of those. Nice set of piping nozzles, really good quality. Matfa is the quality company that we use for these. So nice set of piping nozzles, all the different shapes and sizes for different works and finishes you want to give. Very important. Also cutters. The actual set is downstairs, but these are the cutters that we use. They're also from Matfa. I just think they're really important part of the armory. So we have fluted, we have teardrop shape, we have oval shape, we have round ones, but they're Matfa pyroplastic ones. So very nice cutters there as well. In terms of these little guys, so we've got these two sort of jars of fun and games, and we tip those out. You see all sorts of bits and pieces, little fine sieve, ultra fine like a chinois, super important. Pass through those sauces, pass clarified butter through, whatever it is. Small amounts, volumes of liquid that need passing out, that's a great thing. An Exo Matfa spatula, Maurice, super important. Heat resistant, super flexible on the side. All produce out from the bowl, nice to stir, nice to mix with. Fantastic. Keep one for hot and one for cold, that's really important. Nice big spoon for serving, big spoon for rocher, and all sorts like that. Good old-fashioned wooden spoon. Couple more Maurices. A timer, always worthwhile, unless you can do it on your watch or on your phone, but ultimately a timer is a super important part of what we do. And then a probe. Every now and then we need to use a probe for bits and pieces, make sure that chicken's completely cooked, etc. A probe is a really good idea. Okay, if you come over here, Sam, with me over here, I've got this little, this is from Japanese knife company actually. It's a little tray that has all the inserts in it. This is generally what I would always kind of set myself up with. We can interchange all the bits in here. There's a microfiber here. There's different types of salt. This is Malden sea salt that I use for a lot of my seasoning. That's normal table salt, but it's the Japanese one that we use. If we were boiling green beans or whatever, then that's the salt we would use for that. Two little bottles here. This has got dill oil for a dish I'm cooking later, and that's got really good quality olive oil. And these tiny nozzles just allow me to get a bit more detail if I'm drizzling that over the top of some tomatoes or something. So really nice that. Always use some string, really important. That happens to be candy sugar that I've used for a previous dish. Last time I had this tray out, and that is dried oregano. But they are just for something else I was using, but I can interchange those. Olive oil wise, I use Capizana. That's my favorite olive oil. Use that for finishing. I don't really cook with it, but it's an olive oil that I'll use for finishing. I love the finishing on it. It's a brilliant Italian olive oil. Cabernet Sauvignon vinegar, so I use these vinegars a lot, and the Chardonnay and the Sherry actually. Same brand, I use Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon and the Sherry. I think they're fantastic vinegars and we use a lot of them. And this is the Belazou early harvest oil that I like. I cook a lot with this olive oil. We use it for our Trinity bread. It's just we use much more volume of it than I would want to use with the Capizana. So that's a really good olive oil. And this tray just sort of keeps everything in hand. And let's not forget this little beauty. So that is a personalized Trinity cake tester. So that's what goes inside a cake. You pull it out. If it's clean, the cake is cooked. But equally, it's the same thing that we use inside a piece of lamb, piece of chicken, piece of beef. Test the temperature inside, leave it in for 20 seconds on your lip, on the back of your hand, and get the temperature. So that's what that is. That is a cake tester, personalized for Trinity. Okay, if you follow me over here, this is where the hardware is. This is the cooking end of things. This is an induction hob that was given to me by Controlled Induction. They gifted this to me very kindly. We do work with them lots, but Controlled Induction hob is what this is. So it's not your standard Buffalo one. This is a Controlled Induction one, so it is a lot more powerful, a lot more durable, and they even personalise it for me as well, which is very kind. But this is a great bit of kit. If you want portable cooking solution, that's the one. On to pans. Now this is a bit of a variety thing. I use mainly Hestan pans. That's the pan of choice for me. And the Copper Bond is the choice of the pan that I like the most. I like the heat coverage I get. I like the heat retention in the pan. I like the triple layer of the cooking. And I just think that they look right, they feel right, the weight is right, and the cooking retention in the pan is perfect for my style. So Hestan, I've got various sizes of those. I've got ones that are very nice and flashy and elaborate and ornate, and we can take these to the table with beautiful things in them. I'm going to cook something in that today as well. So that's another little Hestan pan there. And then we've got another Copper Bond pan. This is good for soups. It's good for cooking whole pieces of nice chicken thighs and things like that. So it's got nice flat area, nice wide base, good heavy weight to it, and it will retain that heat as well brilliantly. So that's another Copper Bond Hestan pan that I really love. That's a Hestan frying pan. It looks a bit odd, but actually the heat retention and the evenness of cooking in this pan, if you keep it at a low to moderate temperature, this is a beautiful pan to use. And it does provide non-stick for me as well, so I use it a lot, and I'm a big fan of that pan. This is another elaborate pan that I use. It has that sort of more presentation, so we might roast some, make a stew in there, or make a coq au vin, or make a chicken vajouin in there. Put the lid on, we can present that at the table. It's just an elaborate, beautiful. We'd obviously polish it up beforehand, but that's another Hestan pan there. And then a couple of other things that are interesting. This is an Ondine pan, very elaborate Ondine pan. It's done its years, probably had that about 8 years. This is a titanium lined pan, so it is a fantastic pan. The heat dispersed on this pan is brilliant. But we don't work with them anymore so much because you can't buy them anymore, unfortunately. But these are great pans if you can buy them. And then I guess actually one of the most important pans in our armoury are these little cast iron, solid, heavyweight Arga pans. These are actually Arga pans. So I did a job with Arga actually 10, 12 years ago. Did a lovely cooking demonstration for the lovely people at Arga. They were wonderful and I really enjoyed it. And they gave me these pans to cook on, and I really loved cooking in them. I just felt they were like the perfect size to make a one-pot dish, and the heat retention was brilliant in them. I brought them back to Trinity, and we tried making a tarte tartane in them, and there on in, we only made tarte tartane in these pans, and I now own 100 of them, and we've had them for over 15, 20 years, which they look like we've had them 15, 20 years. But yeah, they're a brilliant pan, and we use them for all sorts, for cooking pieces of meat, cooking fish, cooking tatans, cooking all sorts of stuff. But I'm a real fan of these Arga cast iron pans. So there you go. There's a little tour of my kit, what I use, how I do it, what I do. This is 35 years of condensed, getting rid of the trash, bringing in all the stuff that's really important to elevate your cooking. And ultimately, cooking is a process that you want to be surrounded by the best kit to make it as enjoyable as possible. Happy cooking.